There is this big question. It's probably the first question that needs to be asked and answered by any philosopher, by anyone who wants to grow in wisdom, by anyone who wants to have knowledge. And that big question is, what is truth? I'll say it again. What is truth is the big question. Hi, my name is Father Mike Schmitz, and this is Ascension Presents. How do you define truth? Because if we're gonna talk about, honestly, on this channel, I make a lot of claims, right? We make a lot of claims that here's the church that says, oh, this is true, or that is true. But the first question is, well, what is truth in the first place? And there can be a lot of complicated definitions of truth. There can be a lot of really complex and nuanced definitions of truth. But I'm a pretty simple guy, so let's have a simple definition of truth. In fact, here's a definition of truth that can be two words: what is. That's it. Truth can simply be defined as what is. Therefore, a statement is either true or false to the degree that it conforms to what is. Let me say that again. A statement is either true or false to the degree that it conforms to reality or to what is, right? And yet at the same time, so that's a quick handy definition. Hopefully it's helpful. But at the same time, we have a lot of people who say something like, well, that's your truth, but that's not my truth. I'm sure you've heard people say this. Whenever I talk with our college students about this, they're like, yeah, people say that all of the time. Or they'll say things like, she had to speak her truth, or he had to speak his truth. In fact, there's this quote that is often quoted, and it says, speak your truth, even if your voice shakes when you say it. On its own, that's not a bad quote. That's not a bad idea, because, right, if you're sharing what is inside of you, you're sharing what you believe in, if you're sharing you with anyone, that takes courage. So I'm not belittling that at all. In fact, there is such a thing as your truth and my truth, right? There is such a thing as that's simply my truth and that's simply your truth. It's a thing called subjective truth, right? Subjective truth is that kind of thing where I would say something like, I prefer Caribou coffee to Starbucks coffee. I like Domino's more than Papa John's. Great. I like just drive a little bit over the speed limit. All of those things are true, but they're subjectively true, right? Why? Because all those statements are about the subject, myself, the one speaking. Because you could hear that and say, well, no, I like Starbucks better than Caribou. Or you could say, I like Papa John's more than Domino's. Or you could say, no, I like driving the speed limit. And I'd say, yeah, that is your truth. Because there's such a thing as subjective truth that's accurate. You're telling me something about yourself, not something about something outside of yourself, right? So that's subjective truth. Now, here's the big question. Is all we have subjective truth? Now, there's a problem, because if all we have is subjective truth, then we only have one of three options when it comes to disagreement. See, maybe I say I like Domino's, and you say you like Papa John's. And I would say, okay, I like Domino's. And you'd say, I like Papa John's. And I'd say, I like Domino's, I like Papa John's. Well, one thing we could do is we could get a bunch of people on our side and take a vote and say, okay, who says they like Papa John's more than they like Domino's? And whoever gets the most votes wins. That's called mob rule. So that's one option. You have mob rule. Secondly, you could say, I like Papa John's more than Domino's. And maybe you're stronger than me, and you can punch me, and now I'm on the ground, and you're like, yeah, see, I was right. Papa John's is better. And you have might makes right as an option. Or you have this third option, which is, you know what? You like Domino's, I like Papa Murphy's, or Papa John's, all the different pizzas. You like Domino's, I like Papa John's, you like Domino's, I like Papa John's. You know what? I can't talk to you anymore, I'm leaving. Or you say, you know what? I can't talk to you anymore, I'm leaving. And then we just go our separate ways. In fact, that's where we're at in a lot of ways in our culture right now, isn't it? We have disagreement over something that we believe in, and we don't even talk to each other. Or we say, I have so many people on my side that can cancel people on your side. Or we have, no, I'm actually have more power than you, therefore I can quiet you, I can shut you up. These are the three options that we have when we only have subjective truth. Things that are true for you, but not necessarily true for me. Now, thank the Lord that there's also another kind of truth other than simply subjective truth. It's a thing called objective truth. So if subjective statements are about the subject, what are objective statements about? They're about the object. They're about an object that is typically independent of the subject. So if I were to say, you can get a medium dark roast at Caribou for $2.10. Okay, that's an objective statement. That statement is either objectively true or objectively false. If I were to say that the speed limit on the road right outside this window is 30 miles an hour. That's an objective statement, right? It's not a statement about what I believe or what I think. It's a statement that's either true or false. Here's the big thing. It's either true or false, regardless of whether I know it, like it, or believe it. That's the thing about objective statements. Objective statements are either true or false, regardless of whether I know it, like it, or believe it. Here at the University of Minnesota Duluth, they have a tunnel system basically that if you went to this school, you don't have to go outside for almost anything. The dorms are connected to the classrooms, connected to the dining center, connected to the gym. Like you could just show up here on August 28th and not have to go outside until Thanksgiving break. Maybe you're in a classroom, one of those classrooms that don't have any windows, and someone comes in and says, "Did you know that it's snowing already on August 29th?" You say, "I didn't know that it was snowing." Well, it doesn't matter if you didn't know it wasn't snowing, it's snowing. In fact, I remember there was a person I remember talking with on this road. It's 30 miles an hour. They were not going 30 miles an hour, and they got pulled over by a police officer. And their defense was, well, I didn't know the speed limit was 30 miles an hour. Now, they're not knowing that the speed limit was 30 miles an hour doesn't change anything objectively. Because if you're driving, it's your job to know the speed limit on the road that you're driving on, right? So an objectively true statement is objectively true regardless of whether I know it. It's also true regardless of whether I like it. Again, if it's snowing in August in Minnesota, I could say I don't like that. That doesn't really matter because it doesn't change anything about the objective fact that it's either snowing or not snowing. And the third thing is it's objectively true whether I know it, like it, or believe it. So someone could say, again, it's raining outside. And I said, "I don't believe you." Okay, once again, that doesn't change anything. Yes, we have subjective truth. That's things that are my truth, things that are your truth. And those are statements that can be really important for us to have communication, have a relationship with each other. But if we're going to have a relationship that transcends just my feelings or your opinion or my opinion or your beliefs or my beliefs, but actually get to, remember the definition of truth, get to what actually is, we have to realize there is objective statements that are objectively true or false, regardless of whether I know it, like it, or believe it. Now here's the last thing. It's called the Principle of Non-Contradiction. The Principle of Non-Contradiction states that a thing cannot both be and not be at the same time and in the same way. Again, and once again, a thing cannot both be and not be at the same time in the same way when it comes to objective statements, right? So if this is what is, it cannot both be, is, and not be, not is, at the same time and in the same way. You cannot be both looking at your screen on your phone right now and not looking at your screen at your phone right now at the same time and in the same way. Now, sometimes we have students who will say like, "Oh, but Father, what about this? What if you have a lamp that's on a table, but it's turned off? It's on and off at the same time." Whoa, no one ever thought of this. Yes, they did, because the definition is a thing cannot both be and not be at the same time and in the same way, right? So we can have these discussions with each other because we can say, okay, what is, independent of whether we know it, like it, or believe it, objectively, because what we're doing is pursuing the truth of reality. And what that ultimately means is, if I say something like, God exists, that's one thing that we can't say, well, that's true for you, but not true for me. Why? Because I didn't say I like the fact that God exists. And you're like, well, I don't like the idea that God exists. It's God either exists or he doesn't. Why? It's principle of non-contradiction. A thing cannot both be and not be at the same time and in the same way. As a Catholic Christian, I believe that Jesus is God. He's the second person of the Holy Trinity. Jesus cannot both be God and not be God at the same time and in the same way. So when it comes to that element of religion, either all Christians are right when it comes to that, or all Christians are wrong when it comes to that. But we can't both be right and wrong at the same time and in the same way, just like those. So basically, everyone who says Jesus is God, if that's true, they're all right. And everyone who says Jesus is not God, if Jesus is, they're all wrong when it comes to this, right? It makes sense? Now, this is not to be able to say, well, now we have a club to beat people over the head with. It's actually now we have a place to talk about, is this objectively true? Is this true or false, regardless of whether I know it, like it, or believe it? This is the basis of philosophy. This is the basis of like clear thinking, to recognize, yes, there is such a thing that's my truth or your truth. But there's also more than that. Something that is true outside of us, truth that's it's true or false independent of us, something that's true or false regardless of whether we know it, like it, or believe it. And that's what we try to do on this channel, try to talk about things that, okay, is this true? And if it is, how can I live my life for the Lord? And if it's not true, then I need to face that fact too and live my life for something else. But here we are on this channel, and I'm so grateful for you. From all of us here at Ascension Presents, my name is Father Mike. God bless.